In the bustling heart of a modern African city, Joseph, a humble and hard-working mechanic, dares to dream beyond class barriers when he falls in love with Lilian, the stunning daughter of a ruthless billionaire. What begins as a fairy tale romance quickly spirals into a heartbreaking tale of betrayal, greed, and deception. Blinded by love, Joseph sacrifices everything for a woman whose heart belongs more to wealth than to him. As secrets unfold and trust is shattered, this emotional story reveals the painful cost of misplaced loyalty and the brutal consequences of envy and ambition. Sit back, relax, and find out what happened in this wonderful story. Joseph wiped sweat off his brow as he stepped out of another corporate office in Lagos. With his degree in mechanical engineering and the Best Graduating Student Award from the university, he had high hopes. But after over 50 job applications and countless interviews, rejection had become a familiar friend. Companies wanted experience he didn't have or offered insulting pay. Each letter that read, "We regret to inform you," chipped away at his pride. He returned home, his mother welcoming him with a warm plate of jollof rice. "You are not a failure, my son. Start with your hands. You're too gifted to be idle," she encouraged. That night, he couldn't sleep. Her words rang in his mind. Maybe the solution wasn't in an office. Maybe it was in oil, bolts, and grease. The next morning, Joseph walked the bustling streets of Ikeja, scanning the corners for any shed or unused space. He found a rusty container shop beside a busy market, available at a modest rent. It was far from impressive, but it was his. With his last savings, he bought basic tools and second-hand overalls. Friends laughed. "You, first-class engineering graduate, now a roadside mechanic?" But Joseph smiled. Pride wouldn't feed him. He began with minor jobs, changing engine oil, fixing tires, adjusting brakes. He knelt in the dirt, worked under harsh sun and surprise rain. But every vehicle he touched came back stronger. Customers began to whisper about the young mechanic who knew cars like a surgeon knew veins. Some came out of curiosity, others from referrals. Slowly, one customer turned to 3, and 3 turned to 7. Joseph treated every car like a sacred project. He listened to the vehicle's owner carefully, often diagnosing faults other mechanics overlooked. He would explain problems in simple terms, never exploiting ignorance. Customers began to trust him. An elderly woman said, "You have an honest face." A fleet manager brought 3 of his vehicles after hearing about him. To meet growing demand, Joseph hired 2 apprentices, Bello and Emeka. He trained them with patience and instilled discipline. His shed transformed, walls repainted, the ground leveled, a waiting bench added. A customer lounge followed. He labeled tools, scheduled repairs, and introduced a simple record-keeping system. The workshop was still modest, but it radiated excellence. Every creaking bolt he tightened added to his reputation. His nickname spread fast, Engineer Joe. The buzz of a luxury car broke the hum of the afternoon. A sleek black Mercedes-Benz pulled into Joseph's compound. He wiped his hands on a rag and approached. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a woman who looked like she belonged in a movie. Her sunglasses rested elegantly on her head, and her voice was soft but firm. "It's making a strange sound when I accelerate." She stepped out, her heels clicking on the pavement. Joseph stared for a second longer than he should have. She wore a navy blue jumpsuit, minimal makeup, but her presence screamed class. "I'll take a look," he said, collecting her keys. She waited under the shed's shade while Joseph worked. She seemed amused by the organized chaos. The apprentices, the customers, the grease. Joseph diagnosed the issue quickly, a faulty transmission valve. As he explained it to her, she listened intently. "You speak like a lecturer," she said. He smiled shyly. "I almost was." They exchanged names, Lilian, daughter of Chief Damien Okafor. Joseph's mind flashed to the stories he'd heard about the billionaire businessman. He kept his composure. As he fixed the car, Lilian lingered. She asked about his studies, why he chose to become a mechanic, and how he managed to stay so positive. Joseph found her curiosity endearing. When the job was done, she offered to pay extra. He refused. "I charge by the job, not by who you are." She raised an eyebrow, impressed. "We'll meet again, Engineer Joe." The next week, Lilian returned. "The AC isn't cooling," she said with a smirk. Joseph checked. Nothing was wrong. She admitted it was an excuse. They laughed. She started visiting regularly, each time with a new car problem. One afternoon, she brought jollof rice and zobo. "You can't eat puff puff and Coke every day," she teased. Joseph found himself anticipating her visits. She was different from the women he knew, confident, elegant, yet surprisingly humble. They started sharing bits of their lives. She told him about growing up with wealth but lacking genuine friendships. He shared his struggle with rejection and how he rebuilt himself with grace and grit. Their connection deepened naturally. They moved from workshop banter to late-night calls and weekend strolls. Lilian invited him to a beach picnic where they laughed over roasted corn and coconut drinks. Joseph began to dream again, but doubts gnawed at him. Could he really belong in her world? Her dresses cost more than his month's earnings. Chuka, his friend, warned, "Be careful. Women from that level play with emotions." But Joseph shook it off. Lilian was real. She saw him for who he was. Still, he struggled with the idea of meeting her father. That kind of power scared him more than failure ever did. Lilian finally invited him home. "You need to meet my parents if you're serious," she said. Joseph dressed in his best native attire, heart-pounding. The estate gate alone looked like an embassy. Inside, marble floors, gold-accented furniture, and bowing maids overwhelmed him. He sat stiffly in the waiting room, gripping his cap tightly. She held his hand. "Relax, Joe. You belong here, even if you don't feel like it." He looked at her eyes, sincere, warm. But nothing could prepare him for what he was about to face. Chief Damien came down the staircase like a king descending his throne. Tall, with peppered hair and sharp eyes, he scanned Joseph slowly. "You want to marry my daughter?" he asked, voice cold and composed. Joseph stood, voice shaky but honest. "Yes, sir, with all my heart." Chief Damien stared, then muttered, "Get ready." No smile, no welcome, just those two words. Lilian whispered, "That's his version of yes." But Joseph wasn't so sure. Chief Damien spared no cost. The wedding was featured in magazines. Dignitaries attended. A-list artists performed. Lilian's gown sparkled like diamonds under the lights. Joseph felt like a guest at his own ceremony. His friends from the workshop cheered from the back row, eyes wide in disbelief. Despite the lavishness, Joseph's joy was real. He was marrying the woman he loved. They danced, cut cake, and kissed for cameras. But beneath the joy, a seed of unease remained. Why had the chief agreed so easily? They moved into a penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and smart appliances. A brand-new Lexus sat in the driveway. Joseph's wedding gift. He stared at it often, unsure if he had earned it. But what truly puzzled him was Lilian's behavior. On their wedding night, she said she was tired. He understood. The second night, she locked herself in the guest room. The third night, she screamed when he touched her. "Don't ever try that again," she snapped. Confused and hurt, Joseph retreated. His dream was becoming a nightmare. Joseph tried everything. Breakfast in bed, notes, flowers. Lilian brushed him off. "I'm not ready," she'd say. Her smiles faded. Her warmth vanished. She stayed out longer, often coming home after midnight. When Joseph questioned her, she turned defensive. "You don't own me," she barked. He started sleeping alone. He couldn't tell his mother. How could he explain such shame? He stopped smiling at work. Even his apprentices noticed. "Oga they think too much," they whispered. At night, Joseph often heard Lilian whispering in the hallway. One night, curiosity pulled him to the door. He leaned close. "No, Daddy. He hasn't touched me," she said. Silence. Then a soft chuckle. Joseph's heart froze. "Daddy? As in Chief Damien?" Why would her father ask such a question? And why would Lilian sound proud of it? Something sickening twisted in his gut. He began questioning everything. Her reluctance. Her aggression. Her father's strange calm. He tried confronting her. "What's really going on, Lilian? Why are you like this with me?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't start your nonsense. I married you, didn't I? Be grateful." He sought counseling alone. The therapist suggested she might be suffering trauma or hiding secrets. But no guess matched the truth he was about to uncover. One evening, he tried again to hold her. She shoved him. "If you touch me again, I'll have you arrested for assault." Joseph backed off, heart crushed. He looked at her, a stranger in his wife's body. That night, he didn't sleep. Something was deeply wrong, and he had to know. One humid afternoon, Joseph returned home unexpectedly to retrieve a forgotten blueprint for a client's custom vehicle modification. As he opened the front door, he heard soft laughter and a strange thumping sound coming from upstairs. He paused, every instinct screaming that something was off. The laughter grew louder, followed by moans that made his stomach churn. He tiptoed up the staircase, each step like a drumbeat in his chest. The bedroom door was slightly open. Joseph peeked through the gap, and what he saw shattered him. On their matrimonial bed, Lilian was straddling her own father, both completely undressed and lost in their twisted pleasure. He stumbled back, hand on his mouth, bile rising. The room spun. His vision blurred with rage, sorrow, and disbelief. He pushed the door open and screamed. They froze. Lilian didn't even flinch. Chief Damien calmly adjusted himself as though nothing was wrong. "Are you mad?" Joseph roared. "Your own daughter?" Chief Damien rose slowly, unbothered. "She was mine before she was ever yours." Lilian stood without shame, wrapping a robe lazily around her. "Now you see. You were just a cover," she said coldly. Joseph felt his knees weaken. The room spun again. "You ruined me, both of you," he whispered. The confrontation turned violent. Joseph charged at Chief Damien but was shoved aside. He ran out of the house like a man escaping a nightmare. A maid, who had heard the commotion, secretly recorded the entire scene and uploaded it online. By nightfall, it went viral: "Billionaire and daughter in scandalous act." The nation was shocked. Joseph's shame was now public, but so was the truth. Lilian's mother returned from a charity trip the next day and saw the trending videos. At first, she dismissed them as doctored footage, until she confronted her daughter and husband. The truth broke her. She screamed, wept, and destroyed family portraits. "You are monsters, both of you." Without a word, she packed her belongings and left the mansion. Investors began pulling out of Chief Damien's companies. He was suspended from several business boards. The mighty empire began to crumble. Lilian, now disgraced, locked herself in her room, refusing to eat or speak. Joseph, meanwhile, quietly left the luxurious apartment with only a backpack and the clothes on his back. He walked aimlessly through the streets, heart bleeding. Joseph returned to his workshop late that night. The old shed welcomed him like an old friend. He sat on an overturned paint bucket and buried his face in his hands. He cried, loud, uncontrollable sobs that echoed through the silent compound. The pain was raw. He felt used, betrayed, mocked by fate. For days, he didn't eat. He ignored calls. Even Bello and Emeka didn't know what to do. They cleaned the workshop and left food by his door. "Boss, no day come out again," they whispered to customers. Rumors swirled, but Joseph didn't care. His heart had been shattered beyond words. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the image of his wife and her father. Chuka finally visited and sat beside him. "Joe, you're alive. That's enough. Start again." Those words echoed in Joseph's ears for days. One morning, he rose before dawn and washed his face. He grabbed a rag and began cleaning his tools. Bello arrived and stood frozen. "Oga, you day okay?" Joseph nodded. "Let's fix cars." From that day, he resumed work. At first, it was slow. But each tightened bolt, each spark plug, each wheel alignment helped heal a part of him. His hands were once again his salvation. His workshop became his refuge. He didn't smile much, but he worked with focus. Word spread. Engineer Joe was back. Customers who had once watched his disgrace on social media now lined up at his gate. Not for gossip, but for service. "That man no be ordinary," one customer said. "He fix my Prado like new." Joseph didn't speak much. He simply nodded, worked, and handed back keys with efficiency. He began mentoring new apprentices, young boys with no future, just as he once was. He taught them skills and ethics. The workshop regained its vibrance. Newspapers wrote headlines. "Mechanic who survived scandal returns stronger." But Joseph didn't care for praise. He just wanted peace. One cloudy afternoon, a black SUV pulled into the compound. From it stepped Lillian's mother, looking older, grief written on her face. She sat quietly opposite Joseph and stared for a moment before speaking. "I failed you. I failed myself. I failed my daughter." Her voice cracked. "I didn't know. I swear." She brought out a check and slid it across. "Start again, away from here. Build your life far from this madness." Joseph looked at the check, then at her. He gently pushed it back. "I'll rise by my own hands. I did it before. I will do it again." She wept quietly, then left. The apprentices watched from afar, unsure what had happened. Months later, a slim woman in simple ankara and braids walked into the workshop. "Good afternoon. My car jerks when I try to reverse." Joseph looked up and smiled faintly. "Let's check it out." She introduced herself as Blessing, a teacher at a government school. She was kind, gentle, and asked thoughtful questions. She returned the next week, not with a fault, but with homemade puff-puff for the staff. Conversations turned to laughs. Joseph felt warmth again. No pretense, no pedigree, just sincerity. He didn't rush this time. He allowed friendship to bloom before anything else. 3 years passed. Joseph opened a mechanic institute, training young men and women in modern automotive technology. His story was now one of hope. Newspapers titled him, "The Man Who Rose from Fire." He gave motivational talks in schools, urging youth to rise above pain. Blessing remained by his side. They never rushed into marriage, but built a quiet, respectful love. They shared books, jokes, and faith. One day, Joseph looked into her eyes and asked, "Are you happy?" She smiled. "As long as you are." And he finally believed he deserved love. At a National Youth Empowerment Summit, Joseph received an award for resilience and community impact. He walked to the podium in a sharp milk-color custom suit, flanked by his apprentices. "Thank you," he began, voice steady. "Pain made me. Betrayal sharpened me. But purpose healed me." The hall erupted in applause. He dedicated the award to his late father and all young men who had been broken by life but refused to stay down. As he stepped off the stage, the crowd chanted his name. Engineer Joe wasn't just a mechanic. He was a symbol, a man who walked through fire and came out gold. Not all that glitters is gold. True love is built on honesty, not wealth or status. Sometimes, the people we trust the most can carry the darkest secrets. Never lose yourself trying to fit into a world that was never meant for you. Always listen to your instincts, and never be afraid to walk away from anything that threatens your peace, dignity, or self-worth. Would you have ran away the way Joseph did if you were to be him? Or would you stay back to find out the circumstances surrounding the whole scenario? Drop your answers in the comments section because I will like to read them. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Subscribe and join the family. Stay tuned because we have more amazing stories with great lessons coming up soon. Until next time, bye for now.